He owns a private Gulfstream G450 jet, a nearly $7 million Adobe-style mansion designed by a legendary architect, and a ranch in the heart of Texas Hill Country, a place not everyone is allowed to enter without George Strait's personal permission. His albums have sold over 120 million copies, and his tours have broken stadium records across the United States. But he has no scandals, no talk shows, no controversies. He almost never speaks about his private life. George Strait has never needed to make noise to draw attention, and yet, for over 40 years, his resonance has been louder than anyone else's, becoming the cleanest-cut king of country music, with a fortune most people could only dream of: $326 million. And the question is, how could someone who is practically invisible in showbiz end up having it all? This is the untold story of the cleanest, quietest, yet most powerful artist in American music. Before becoming the king of country, America's undisputed monarch of country music, George Strait was just an unknown boy growing up amid the dusty winds and scorching sun of Texas. He was born on May 18, 1952, in Poteet, a small town south of San Antonio. Life there offered few options. People worked the fields, raised cattle, and prayed for the rains to come on time. Children growing up under the blistering Texas sun rarely thought beyond the borders of their town. The place where they were born was also where they expected to live out their entire lives. The Strait family was not wealthy, but they weren't destitute either. His father, John Byron Strait, was a stern high school math teacher who also managed a 2,000-acre ranch in Pearsall, Texas. His mother left with George's sister, Pensy, after a divorce, leaving George and his older brother, Buddy, to live with their father. Three quiet men trying to make it through life, surrounded by harsh nature and the burdens of family. Imagine a small, barefoot boy running through dusty fields, his hands calloused from tying ropes, feeding livestock, and cleaning stalls from dawn until dusk. Dreams were a luxury in such a place. No one talked about fame or stages. There was only sun that burned the skin, dry winds, and red dirt wedged into every crease of the hands. Perhaps George once thought, music is just something to ease the fatigue after a long day, nothing more. Or, as he would later admit, all I knew was ranch work. I didn't think there was another path. At first, music came into George's life through radio waves, where he heard the sounds of the Beatles and the rock and roll sweeping across America. At Pearsall High School, he joined a small garage band, playing drums, guitar, and singing at local gatherings. However, in a place like Pearsall, music was still considered foreign, and to George, it felt more like a fleeting dream than an actual goal. Few dared to dream of the big stages in Nashville, and even fewer believed a country boy could ever reach the bright city lights. After graduating, George faced the realities of life: either follow in his father's footsteps and work the ranch, or enlist in the military and try to forge a different path. 1971 marked a turning point in his life. First, he married his high school sweetheart, Norma Voss, the woman he always called "my first and only love." It wasn't just a romantic tale, but a strong, enduring partnership that would support every step of George Strait's journey. Shortly after, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and was stationed in Hawaii. Leaving the Texas fields for the first time, George entered a completely different world. No more scent of dry hay, no more cattle calls, only drills, uniforms, and a military band. There, George joined the country music group Rambling Country, performing for soldiers on base. With a simple guitar and classic songs, he began to understand something that had once been just a hobby. Music could become his way of connecting with people. "I didn't know if I had any talent," he once said, "but when I sang and saw them smile, I knew I wanted to do this forever." It wasn't Madison Square Garden. It wasn't a multi-million-dollar tour. It was just a makeshift stage, a few dim lights, and soldiers smiling after a long day of drills. But those moments, raw and genuine, planted something in George that was bigger than a dream: belief. No matter how tough life got, George held on to his quiet optimism, the same one that would later win over millions of fans. From dusty days in Pearsall to his first applause in a Hawaiian army camp, his journey had only just begun, but the music within him had already awakened. From a Hawaii army base back to Texas, George Strait returned not just with a cowboy hat and an old guitar. He carried a dream once buried under layers of time and dust. After being discharged from the Army in 1975, George came back to Texas with the two most valuable things in his life: an unwavering love for Norma, his loyal wife, and a newfound belief in music, which he had once considered nothing more than a far-off fantasy. But back in the real world, nothing came easy. George enrolled at Southwest Texas State University, majoring in agriculture, a practical choice tied to his family's roots. To most, he was just another country boy, attending school by day, playing music by night, occasionally landing small gigs at local bars. He joined a band called Ace in the Hole, which played at local fairs, outdoor weddings, rural dances, and, most memorably, at smoky, rough-edged honky-tonk bars where live music was the only thing that kept Texas nights alive. They hauled their own gear, performed, packed up. No assistants, no bright lights. Just passion, patience, and sometimes payment in the form of a cold beer. George often drove his beat-up truck across hundreds of miles just to sing a few songs, only to return to the ranch to work alongside his father. His life at that time was a loop of hope and disappointment. He sent demos to countless Nashville labels and received nothing in return but silence or rejection letters. "Your music is too traditional," they said. "Today's audience wants something more modern, more youthful. A cowboy like you is out of style." George didn't argue. He didn't beg, but each night like that, a little piece of his belief wore down. In his most exhausted moments, he even considered giving up. Maybe there were nights when he looked out over the dark fields beyond the window and asked himself, "Am I wasting my time? Should I be more realistic?" And in those moments, it was Norma, the woman who never wavered, who held him steady. "Just one more year," she whispered. "Try one more time." Her words were gentle, but they changed George Strait's entire life. In 1981, MCA Records finally gave him a chance. They released his debut single, Unwound. The song, full of lively fiddles, honky-tonk rhythms, and George's deep, earthy Texas drawl, quickly climbed to #1, 6 on the Billboard country chart. In a market that was rapidly turning pop, George's sound felt both old and new, raw, honest, and deeply nostalgic for the American countryside. Soon after, he released his debut album, Strait Country, marking the arrival of something different. Music that didn't try to impress, didn't chase trends, just spoke from the heart. George once said something to the effect of, "I'm not trying to stand out. I just sing the way I grew up singing." In 1982, the hit Fool-Hearted Memory became his first #1, the beginning of an unprecedented run of 60 chart-topping singles spanning 3 decades. a feat that no other artist in country music history has matched. But success didn't come without skepticism. George Strait was notoriously private, almost absent from the media spotlight. He avoided interviews, didn't chase public attention, and never built a flashy celebrity persona. This puzzled the press at the time. Some critics remarked, "George Strait doesn't have a strong personal imprint. He's just singing." Others in the industry scoffed, "A cowboy in a hat who won't play the fame game? How can he compete with major stars? The market doesn't have patience for someone who refuses to build a brand." But within all those no's was exactly what made him different. George didn't respond to doubts with words. He let the music speak, let the audience decide, and let time prove his worth. And remarkably, the American public, especially those who grew up with traditional values, realized this wasn't just a passing trend, but a true icon. From backwoods bar rooms to having his songs echo across America, George Strait stepped into the light not by marketing tactics, but through an identity that couldn't be imitated and a conviction that couldn't be shaken. From someone who had been rejected more times than he could count, George Strait didn't just reach success, he redefined it, and in doing so, wrote a new chapter for modern country music. Since the release of his debut album Strait Country in 1981, George Strait didn't merely step into the music scene, he charged in as a guardian of country music's soul, holding his ground amid the whirlwind of pop influence and commercial trends. Over the next 4 decades, he would go on to set records previously unseen in American music history. He has sold over 120 million records worldwide, with 33 albums certified platinum or multi-platinum. Titles like Pure Country, Oceanfront Property, Blue Clear Sky, and Carrying Your Love With Me became the familiar soundtrack in countless American homes, gas stations, and coffee shops. With 60 #1 hits on the Billboard country charts, George Strait holds the record for the most chart-topping songs by any artist in American music history. A milestone yet to be broken. One critic once wrote, "If Elvis Presley is the king of rock and roll, then George Strait is the king of country, not because he claimed it, but because no one can deny it." His success wasn't confined to the studio. George Strait became one of the most powerful live performers of all time. His The Cowboy Rides Away tour, 2013 to 2014, was living proof of that, grossing over $100 million and selling more than 1 million tickets. And on the final night at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, with 104,000 fans bathed in soft lights and silence, George said little. He simply bowed his head, removed his cowboy hat, and smiled. A quiet gesture, but one that brought the entire stadium to tears. It was a farewell without words, just music, and a deep, silent respect between artist and audience. By 2024, while many of his peers had long stepped back, George Strait, at age 72, continued to astonish. At Kyle Field, Texas A&M, he set the record for the largest ticketed concert in U.S. history, with 110,905 people in attendance. Picture it, a 72-year-old man in a cowboy hat, standing before a sea of fans, singing the same humble songs he sang 40 years ago, and 110,000 voices singing along, in a wordless tribute of love and gratitude. It wasn't just a concert, it was a historical moment. Along the way, George Strait received some of the most prestigious honors in music. Grammy Award for Best Country Album with Troubadour in 2009. Over 80 major awards, including dozens of CMA and ACM honors. Named Entertainer of the Year 3 times. Inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2006. Awarded the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award in 2024. Many of the biggest names in country music have looked up to him. Garth Brooks once said, "George didn't just pave the road, he kept the lights on so the rest of us could find our way." Alan Jackson also shared, "When I think of real country music, I think of George Strait, no one else." And George himself, a man who always stayed out of the spotlight's chaos, remained true to his quiet, near-invisible style. He once said something to the effect of, "I never saw myself as a big star. I just sing songs I believe in, and I know there's someone out there who needs to hear them." With millions of records sold, hundreds of awards won, and stadiums packed to the brim, George Strait has lived the life every artist dreams of. And somewhere between world tours and peaceful afternoons on his Texas ranch, he quietly boards his Gulfstream G450, flying across the skies like a king who never needed a crown. With unmatched records and the enduring love of millions, George Strait didn't just live the life of an artist, he lived as an icon. And behind all the glory lies a way of life that the world can't help but admire. With an estimated fortune worth tens of millions of dollars, George Strait doesn't live like a celebrity. He lives like a true legend. And every mansion, every car, even his simplest pleasures radiate a sense of uniqueness, privacy, and inimitable charm. The Adobe Mansion in San Antonio, the castle of the king of country. Perched proudly atop a hill in the luxurious Dominion area of San Antonio, the Adobe Mansion is not just a house, it's a palace, meticulously crafted for George Strait by Southwestern architecture master Bill Tull. Spanning nearly 8,000 square feet, the residence feels like a living museum. 14 intricately carved hand-built fireplaces like sculptural masterpieces. A sparkling infinity pool glowing under the Texas sunset, and a private tennis court worthy of royal tournaments. Hand-polished wooden interiors and vibrant stained glass windows transform each corner into a work of art. George once called it his dream home, before selling it in 2021 for $6.9 million, a modest price for a one-of-a-kind masterpiece made for a country music icon. The Rockport Beach House, a seaside palace. If San Antonio was the kingdom, then George's mansion on Little Bay, Rockport, was his oceanfront sanctuary. Covering over 6,400 square feet, it's a blend of luxury and tranquility. 4 opulent bedrooms with hand-carved wooden beds, 7 marble-tiled bathrooms with imported stone, and a private dock where George could imagine mooring his dream yacht, a gleaming white vessel named Amarillo by morning. The expansive ocean-facing patio, where he and Norma would sip Texas wine at sunset, is fitted with an outdoor fireplace and a hidden sound system that plays timeless country melodies. Valued at around $3 million, to George, it was a priceless gem, a place to fish, dream, and forget the world. The Bourne Ranch, a boundless cowboy kingdom. Tucked away in the Texas Hill Country, the Bourne Ranch is George Strait's true heartland, a cowboy empire where he lives authentically. Though its value remains undisclosed, imagine a grand timber estate with soaring vaulted ceilings surrounded by hundreds of acres where purebred horses gallop and cattle roam. Inside, a spacious living room features a massive stone fireplace adorned with George's very first cowboy hat, like a royal insignia. Hand-polished wooden floors gleam beneath European crystal chandeliers. Outside, George strums his guitar from a leather armchair, watching horses roam free, a vision both luxurious and deeply grounded. The ranch's worth isn't measured in dollars, but in the unbreakable spirit of a man who never strayed from his roots. If homes are where George Strait rests, then his vehicles are how he roams America, both literally and metaphorically. Bentley Continental GTC 2012, a speed legend's masterpiece. Who would have thought a cowboy hat-wearing legend like George Strait would own a Bentley Continental GTC convertible? Yet he did, and turned it into a personal relic. Its roaring V12 engine echoed like his voice across the stage, wrapped in buttery, soft, handcrafted leather, with glossy walnut inlays and a roof that folded back to embrace the Texas wind. He once drove it along Rockport's coastal roads, later autographing the owner's manual before selling it in 2017 for $159,000. A figure that only hinted at the car's deeper value as part of his musical journey. Chevrolet Silverado, the unshakable companion of a cowboy. Despite the means to own a fleet of supercars, George stayed true to his Texas roots with his Chevrolet Silverado. But this wasn't just any pickup, it was a powerhouse, boasting a growling V8 engine, midnight black paint, like a Texas night, and hand-stitched premium leather interiors. He drove it through Bourne fields, hauling hay or towing a horse trailer, like a king surveying his land. Priced around $50,000, for George, it symbolized practical luxury, a loyal road companion. Ford F-150, the silent strength of a legend. Alongside his Silverado, George also owns a Ford F-150, another rugged warrior of the Red Land. Outfitted with oversized tires, a chrome grille that shined like a medal, and a cabin as spacious as a mobile lounge where he'd tune the radio to his own hits. More than transportation, it's a mobile fortress, ready to tackle every bumpy road from ranch to concert. Valued at approximately $60,000, in George's hands, it's a piece of a multi-million-dollar cowboy realm. Garia Luxury Golf Car, the country gentleman on the green. Not all his rides have horsepower. George Strait also owns a refined toy, a Garia luxury golf car. This compact European gem, finished in pearl white paint, features plush leather seats, soft as those in his San Antonio villa, and a mini sound system playing Amarillo by morning as he glides across his ranch or golf course. It's his way of relaxing with friends, turning every ride into an aristocratic outing. Worth about $20,000, its luxury lies in how it complements his calm, collected demeanor. But sometimes, the road isn't enough. Sometimes, to truly be himself, George Strait must take to the skies, and that's when the Gulfstream G450 becomes his companion above the clouds. Gulfstream G450, a free spirit over Texas skies. When it comes to extravagance, nothing rivals George Strait's private jet, the Gulfstream G450. Valued at around $15 million, it's a flying palace. Soft, cream-colored leather interiors like clouds, ornate walnut paneling, and plush seats fit for a king, where George can recline and gaze at the sky through panoramic windows. A state-of-the-art entertainment system plays his cherished recordings, turning every flight into a private concert. He uses it to travel between shows or return home to Bourne, landing like a king returning to his domain, luxurious, discreet, and unstoppable. And yet, no matter how lavish the assets, they don't tell the whole story. To truly understand George Strait, look at how he plays. Gently, quietly, and with depth. Golf, where the cowboy meets the gentleman. On misty mornings at his ranch or beach house, George is often seen in a simple polo shirt, golf club in hand, wearing a soft smile. For him, golf isn't a sport, it's the art of balance. He's participated in numerous charity tournaments in Texas and Florida, often organizing friendly matches with fellow artists, business leaders, and veterans. But what's interesting is, George doesn't play to win. He plays to unwind. A friend once recalled, "George never seemed stressed. Even after a missed putt, he'd just smile, look toward the hills and say, 'Beautiful day, huh?'" At some of his properties, he's even built private practice greens, complete with automated sprinklers and PGA standard turf, but keeps them hidden like secret treasures. Because for George, the best swings are the ones no one sees. Horseback riding, a tradition's breath in a modern world. George doesn't just sing about cowboys, he lives like one. Each morning, he rides through his Bourne ranch. No flash, no photos, just the steady sound of hooves on red dirt. To him, horses aren't just animals. They're companions and the soul of rural life. He once shared with fans, "I've learned to read emotions through a horse's eyes. It's more honest than any newspaper." He doesn't keep horses for show. He's participated in traditional cattle drives, breeding programs, and even supported organizations working to preserve the iconic quarter horse, a Texas pride. Fishing and hunting, when the noise of the world fades. Aside from his guitar, George's favorite tool may well be his fishing rod. He often spends weekends fishing in Little Bay, Rockport, where the sea is calm and emerald green. No entourage, no drones, just one man and a small boat drifting through the morning stillness. A dock worker once said, "I saw him sit out there for 3 hours without catching a single fish, and when he came back, he smiled like he just won a trophy." During hunting season, George and friends head to private game lands in Texas Hill Country, where he prefers to pitch tents himself, light a campfire, and grill meat by the creek. Nothing extravagant, just pure joy. These pastimes aren't for show. They're how George Strait stays grounded in a noisy world. While the world races forward, he chooses to live slow. While music trends change daily, he chooses the eternal rhythm of nature and identity. Each mansion, each vehicle, each journey isn't just a symbol of wealth, but a reflection of a legendary life. George Strait doesn't just own these things, he transforms them into living spaces where music and soul become one. George Strait isn't just a master of writing timeless love songs, he's also someone who has carefully built a life behind the spotlight with clarity, elegance, and a deep sense of responsibility. To him, fame and success are not merely for enjoyment, they're tools for creating lasting value for his community and for the legacy he's consciously shaping. One of the most personal and distinctive investments George has made is in Código 1530, a premium tequila brand hailing from Jalisco, Mexico. This is no mass-market product. Código is handcrafted, designed for true connoisseurs. George didn't just invest capital. He was involved in every detail of building the brand, from the aging process to bottle design and exclusive product lines. The Código 1530 Añejo George Strait Edition is a testament to that commitment. Aged for over 10 years in French oak barrels, each bottle is topped with an intricately gold-plated cap and individually hand-numbered. It's not just a luxury product. It's a gift George proudly shares on quiet evenings with close friends, a reflection of the lifestyle he so carefully maintains. Despite these high-end ventures, George Strait remains deeply rooted in his Texas country heritage. He invests in cattle ranching, particularly Hereford and Angus breeds, prized in the premium beef industry. But for George, this isn't just about profit. It's his way of preserving the cowboy legacy, waking up early, working the land alongside the cattle, and honoring the traditions he grew up with. Every investment, every material success seems to serve as a foundation for something more important, a commitment to community. And that commitment began with the greatest heartbreak of his life. In 1986, George Strait lost his firstborn daughter, Jennifer, in a car accident when she was just 13 years old. It was a devastating blow. After the funeral, George withdrew almost completely from the public eye. No interviews, no stage appearances. He chose silence as a path to healing. From that pain, the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation was born. The foundation focuses on helping underprivileged children in the San Antonio area through scholarships, healthcare, and arts education programs. There are no splashy media campaigns, no lavish fundraising galas, but for decades, thousands of children have been quietly supported by a fund built from a father's enduring love. One can imagine George silently watching over each application, each donation, as a way of keeping Jennifer forever close. A local teacher once shared that George had quietly funded the rebuilding of a small school in Pearsall after a major flood, something no one knew until the school sent a thank you letter. To George, doing the right thing doesn't require a spotlight. His generosity doesn't stop there. George has long stood by military veterans, those who served their country, just like he did. As the face of the Wrangler National Patriot Program, George lends his voice and dedication to supporting wounded U.S. veterans and the families of fallen service members. He regularly participates in fundraising events, performs free of charge, and stays connected with the veteran community with genuine respect and care. Those close to him say George pays special attention to the unsung heroes behind the music industry, the aging musicians, the sound techs, the crew members without insurance. On more than one occasion, he's quietly stepped in with personal assistance, never publicized, just so they wouldn't have to give up their careers or dreams due to temporary hardships. It's these quiet acts of kindness, unflashy, persistent, and deeply human, that form the greatest part of George Strait's legacy. And you, do you believe that silent kindness might just be more valuable than fame itself? When people talk about George Strait, they often think of his timeless hits, the ever-present cowboy hat, and that quiet, steady gaze that always seems to keep just the right distance from the glitz and glamour of fame. But there's one thing many might overlook. In over 4 decades of being in the spotlight, George Strait has had virtually no scandals. Not because he's perfect, but because he chooses to live by his own principles, to be real, to protect his privacy, and to let the music speak for itself. Still, the public hasn't always understood that choice. In 1992, George took a step into acting with the film Pure Country. The soundtrack, especially the song I Cross My Heart, went on to become one of the biggest hits of his career. But the movie itself didn't make the impact many had hoped. Critics said it lacked depth, was too safe, and at times even rigid. When asked about the experience, George simply gave a quiet smile and said, "I'm not an actor. I'm just a guy singing his songs." To someone else, it might have felt like failure. But to George, it was just an experiment, a step outside his comfort zone that ultimately reminded him where he truly belonged, on the music stage. George's reserved nature has also puzzled the media. After the tragic death of his daughter Jennifer in 1986, he withdrew almost completely from interviews. No public statements, no emotional retellings, just a silent, deeply personal grief. Some journalists didn't understand it. One newspaper once described him as the most mysterious man in Nashville. But they didn't realize he never felt the need to explain himself, and he never tried to. For George, if something needs to be said, his music will say it. If something needs to be done, he'll quietly do it. It's not avoidance. It's a steadfast commitment to a simple way of living, to be true to yourself, even when no one is watching. Maybe that's why George Strait didn't rise fast, but he rose steady. No noise, no flash, no chasing after trends. And that's exactly what secured him a place no one else can fill. George Strait doesn't need to say much. His life proves that character lasts longer than fame. George Strait isn't just an artist. He's an icon. Not because he tried to become one, but because he never lost who he was. From a barefoot boy growing up among the Texas fields to a musical legend revered by millions, he's walked the whole path without fanfare or fuss. Just with music, kindness, and unshakable conviction. In a world where people often have to speak loudly just to be heard, George Strait reminds us, silence, too, has its own voice. And sometimes, the quietest ones are the ones you can trust the most. If George's journey has inspired you, if his sincerity made you pause and reflect, share this video with someone who's also searching for what's real. And you, what do you think? What truly endures? The spotlight? Or the way we treat the world around us? Let me know if you want to adapt this into a voiceover script, social media caption, article, or anything else.